Alrighty boys, welcome back once again to another video. How you guys doing? Guys, today we're going to be doing a video that I'm only allowed to make every 100 days. And of course what I'm talking about is today we're going to be going over my entire Fortnite Save the World account and doing an entire account overview for 550 days. Now I was just recently watching A1 Get This Money's video on the same thing. He has 700 days logged in, and what he did is he put timestamps in the description for everything that it went over. So if you guys are wanting to see my schematics, specifically my hero loadouts, my hero resources, anything like that, then you can actually check the description, click on that little button down there for whatever the timestamp is, and go directly to it. But we of course are going to be going over every single thing in today's video, so make sure you sit back, relax, grab some G Fuel, and crack it open with the boys. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So for the proof, just to go and show you guys really quick, 550 days logged in. Of course I got my upgrade llama and all that kind of cool stuff, and the reason we're even on like the 50 interval is because I started this series at 150, and so I just kind of ran with it. So we're at 550 now. I'll make an exception so that we can do 1,000 days logged in whenever we get there, but for now we're at the 50 intervals. To just go and start it off with the simple stuff, we can go and take a look at quest progression. The screen's a little bit glitched right now, but campaign quests have all been completed. Of course the Twine Peak storyline isn't exactly out yet, but I've done all my SSDs. I've done every single endurance mode except for Canny Valley, and of course I've done all of the normal quests that you can currently do in Twine while we wait for the storyline. So all of that kind of stuff is complete. If we go ahead and move on to the command, I guess I'll showcase to you guys my heroes. Nothing too crazy. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'll just kind of lightly go through this really quick. You guys can pause it and take a look at any of these that you want. These are just my 130 heroes, the ones that I do have. Like I said, nothing too interesting, just kind of some basic heroes and some duplicates here and there. Here are my defenders. I don't really keep many defenders whatsoever. If you guys are curious as to my hero loadouts, this is my shotgun hero loadout. This right here is my sword hero loadout, or just kind of melee weapon hero loadout, really. My first shot Rio loadout for Hydra, Rat King, and the Hammer Crush, if I ever feel like using those. This is my testing loadout for Azalea Clark. Recently, she just got a new change to her commander perk, saying that she does 75.5% ability energy damage. Previously, it said 15.5, so I made a class to kind of test her out, and she did not receive a buff. She is still kind of garbage, so, it's kind of unfortunate. Birthday Brigade Jonesy loadout. We have the Ice King loadout. It's my favorite constructor. Sub-Zero Zenith, one of my favorite Outlanders. This guy freezes stuff on a crit. Ice Queen, this is pretty much just my favorite Outlander in the game. She freezes stuff on command with her Seismic Smash. This essentially is kind of like a farming build mixed with Seismic Smash, mixed with a really strong, shock tower, and then assault rifle damage or critical damage. And then of course we have the famed Tactical Assault Sledgehammer build, and this is actually for my Candy Corn LMG build specifically. But that is kind of all my heroes and everything like that. If you guys are curious for my Survivor Squads are actually garbage. These are absolutely terrible, as I don't have a single Survivor Squad that gives trap durability, and that's really like the main thing that you want in any of these Survivor Squads, and I literally don't have a single one with trap durability. In terms of the matched bonuses, I've actually got a lot of bonuses that are matched, but some of them kind of not so much, but I'm very weak on that trap durability, and in the end game that's kind of really all that matters. Of course the upgrades are completely maxed out. The research tiers are all maxed out and all that kind of stuff. Of course we are the max level in the game and all that cool stuff. So moving on to the armory, I'm sure this is the more interesting stuff. That's why I tried to get past everything else pretty quickly. We have the schematics. This is my home to practically a crap ton of God World schematics or Gold World schematics, whatever you want to call them. Pretty much just about every single 130 you see on screen right here does have all gold rolls on them, so we just kind of go over them really quick. The Argon Assault Rifle, this was one of my first legendary assault rifles that I really cared for ever. I got this around whenever I was in Stonewood and Plankerton. Really like this weapon. It's pretty bad nowadays, but it was really fun back in the day. Astrobat 9000, this weapon's pretty bad as well. I know whenever it first came out, a lot of people were trying to defend it and call it really good, but I've never seen anybody use it ever since it came out, and I personally am not a big fan. Blastotron 9000, this is an excellent Zenith weapon. I use this a lot in Twine Endurance. Does really good damage and has really good freeze potential. Blastotron Mini, one of my favorite machine pistols in the game. This thing has the range of an assault rifle. It's very unique, very cool weapon. Bobcat, it's all right. I'd say that this is one of the top tier assault rifles. I personally personally don't care for it too much. It's a little bit pew pew and not enough damage. You know, just for me, I don't really care too much for it. Boom bow, obviously, I mean, it's one of my most favorite weapons in the game. This thing is an absolute blast to use, no pun intended, and I'm sure you guys know that. Next up, we have the bowler, and this thing is extremely fun to use. I haven't really used it in a while though, but it's very unique. I mean, it's a friggin' cannon that you carry on your shoulder. Very fun weapon. Right here we have the broadside. It's one of my favorite traps in the game. It's okay. You know, I like to use this in pretty much any build that I use. It's just a lot of fun shooting cannonballs at stuff. The bundle bus, one of the strongest miss monster killers in the game. Nothing more needs to be said. The candy corn LMG, a weapon that I'll be doing a review on very soon. An extremely underrated weapon that I really hated whenever it first came out, and the more that I've been using it, the more that I've been falling in love. The cannonade, very unique launcher. Don't really care too much for it. It's like fully automatic and actually has a magazine in it. Very unique. I just really don't care for it too much. Sealing electric fields, essentially if you're running low on gas trap mats, these things are your best friend. Speaking of which, we have the gas trap, best sealing trap in the game. Yeah, does amazing damage. We have the Coco 45, absolutely hate this pistol. It's basically a Whisper 45, but worse. It has projectiles, they bounce around and stuff, but it's just an annoyance to actually hit your enemies. Don't really care for this weapon too much. Deatomizer 9000, this thing absolutely claps everything that you shoot at it. Like, this thing does insane damage. It's one of the best launchers in the game. The only place that it kind of falls short is its impact. Its impact isn't as good, and its range isn't as good compared to others. But if you're talking about pure damage, this thing puts out some pure damage. It's amazing. It's really good. The Deathstalker. This is what I named personally the most underrated assault rifle in the game. You never see people using the Deathstalker. I'm an absolute huge fan of this weapon, and using this thing with Sledgehammer, just the crispy crit headshots of this weapon are absolutely insane. Extremely underrated. Double Boiler, my own personal favorite shotgun in the game. Or is it? I don't know, I think the Pulsar 9000 is my favorite shotgun, but this is definitely a second favorite. I feel like a lot of people do sleep on the Double Boiler. I believe you can do a double crit damage on this weapon, but I went with a reload speed so that I can more... Actually, I don't know. How can you roll this weapon? Double crit rating, maybe. Yeah, double crit rating. You can do a double crit rating, or a crit rating double crit damage if you really wanted to, but for me personally, I would rather have that reload speed on there. It definitely makes it a lot more fun to use, and this thing absolutely claps miss monsters. We have the Dragon's Roar. This is a very good weapon, has built-in affliction, is able to pierce targets, is just one of the better semi-auto assault rifles in the game. Of course, it is locked to fire, which is unfortunate, but a really good weapon. Dragonfire, I feel like this weapon gets a little too much flack. It's pretty bad, but it's really meant for multi-target damage, like big groups of enemies. So it does get a lot more flack than I believe it should get, but this weapon is pretty bad. It's pretty garbo. We have the Duet. Really not a big fan of this weapon. I like it with Rex Jonesy, but it shoots way too slow and does way too little damage for me to really care too much about it. Next up, we have the Easter egg launcher. I leveled this thing up for a video and never really touched it any after that. I don't even think I made the video because this weapon's just, it's kind of niche. I don't know. I didn't really care for it. Next up, we have the floor freeze traps, made completely obsolete whenever the tar pit traps came out, so the fact that I even used legendary perk up on this thing is really unfortunate. These are pretty much obsolete nowadays, but I do have them maxed out. We have the floor launchers. Of course, these are going to give you insane amounts of damage if you shoot enemies straight up and they fall down. It's going to launch them back. Pretty much an essential trap in the game. Founder's Drumroll. Don't even want to talk about this. This is one of the worst weapons in the game. I have tried it every which way and I cannot stand it. Yeah, these rolls are bad, but that's only because I gave up after trying so many different rolls, you know, so many different combinations. This weapon's absolute trash. It's so bad. Freedom's Herald, one of the most underrated pistols in the game. This thing is insane. I don't know if you guys saw my, video on this thing a while ago, but this thing pumps out insane amounts of single target and multi-target damage. A lot of people sleep on the Freedom's Herald, and to me, it's one of the most fun pistols I've ever tried in this game. Next up, we have the Gamatron 9000. 9000, and of course this is one of my own personal favorite assault rifles. It's not better than the Wraith. My friend Deathgrip tested this. If the Wraith is energy, then the Gamatron will out damage it. However, if the Wraith is element specific, then the Gamatron will not out damage it. But regardless of that fact, I really do like the Gamatron. This thing does tons of damage. It's very fun to use. It's a very consistent weapon, and you know, it's one of the only burst weapons that I really care for, and it's definitely the best burst in the game. Next up, the Ginger Blaster, essentially the candy corn LMG of the pistol world. You can whip this thing out, completely destroy blasters, takers, and non-elemental smashers with ease. This thing is a fantastic weapon. Gravedigger, one of the few weapons that I do not have a crit build on. People always say that I crit build every single one of my weapons. For one, I normally do that because it's the best way to build the weapon in the current meta, but for two, that's actually not true, because the Gravedigger is probably, I believe, the only weapon that I don't crit build on purpose, and that is because I really like the fire rate damage build with this thing. It's very consistent, and it's very, very good. Next up, we have the Guardian's Will. This weapon's pretty fun. Never really used it after Frostnite. Of course, it does have the leaping heavy attack, but nothing that I've really ever cared for too much. Next up, we have the Hemlock, one of my personal favorite, and what I would personally call the best assault rifle in the game whenever it comes to the crit hit chance, crit hit damage, fire rate, mag, range, as well as the reload time and impact. This weapon is just pretty much good on every single front. The Hemlock absolutely slaps everything, and I'm a huge fan of this assault rifle. Next up, we have the Hydra. I only ever use this on First Shot Rio, but it's definitely my go-to weapon whenever I do play as her. Definitely a really fun one. We have the Jack's Revenge. Essentially, this is really the obliterator of pistols. This thing will do insane amounts of single target damage. Imagine your obliterator with a double crit rating, double crit damage. Essentially, that is the Jack's Revenge. It's just been put in pistol form, and this weapon can clap smashers in about one shot. It does absolute insane amounts of damage. Next up, the Last Word, another weapon that actually does really good amounts of damage in very short succession because of the fire rate and the single bullet damage that this weapon can put out. It has really good crit chance, really good crit hit damage, and it's a very, very good weapon. I feel like a lot of people do sleep on it. Next up, the Lead Slit, the highest DPS hammer in the game. It's got a double crit damage with no crit rating because you want to play a hammer hero when you use it, and because it ramps up the more that you hit an enemy, you know, as far as the attack speed goes, you will be able to delete people in seconds. Next up, the Merc LMG. This, of course, is one of the fan favorites in the game. Personally, haven't really used it in a while since I picked up the Candy Corn LMG, but a very, very good LMG nonetheless. And it kind of got a shadow buff in a way, which means a buff that really wasn't talked about too much, in the sense that energy ammo became easier to craft, which means that this weapon became more viable to use every single mission. Next up, we have the Noble Launcher, one of the few 130s that I don't have maxed out, as I really don't care for it too much. The only time you'll end up using something like this is maybe Twine Endurance and maybe Frostnite if it comes back, but haven't really used the Noble Launcher since. Next up, the Nocturno, one of the most overrated weapons in the game. You're really not going to use this whenever you get to Twine Peaks. The weapon becomes pretty obsolete comparatively to other weapons. Really cool looking though, and that is why I do have it in my logo, but I don't really get to use it too often because it's pretty much hot garbage. Next up, we have the Obliterator. This is my own personal pickaxe. I have a double fire rate and a mag size on this thing. Most people like to go with a damage obliterator or, you know, crit obliterator, which I do have other obliterator schematics for, but I use this as my own personalized pickaxe. Next up, we have the Old Betsy, one of the best snipers in the game. You can either do a headshot build or a crit build. I suck at aiming, so I went with crit. This thing will demolish anything with ease. Next up, the Pain Train, one of the best, most well-balanced assault rifles in the game, with a crit rating, double crit damage, very good base damage and headshot damage, crit hit damage and crit hit chance right down here, and because of this perk as well, it definitely makes up for the lack of crit hit chance, so essentially it doesn't matter. Pretty decent fire rate, mag size, and range, everything like that. Really good weapon, especially whenever it does come to impact. Next up, the Plasmatron 9000. Not really a big fan of this weapon personally. I ended up ranking this weapon pretty low on my sci-fi weapon tier list. A lot of people got mad about that, but I just do not like the Plasmatron 9000. Never really cared for it too much, and it definitely really doesn't compare to the Pulsar, in my opinion. Speaking of which, the Pulsar 9000. My own personal favorite shotgun in the game. This thing, in my opinion, is slightly overpowered in the sense that you can wipe out about 20 enemies in one shot depending on how much they clump up, and it's very good single target damage, very good multi-target damage, and an absolute blast to use. I absolutely love this weapon, and this weapon got me back into using Raptor. Next up, the Rat King. This, of course, would be a choice with First Shot Rio. Used to be a huge fan of this weapon back in the day. Haven't really touched it since. And, yeah, just really haven't touched it since. Next up, the Rat-a-tat, one of my personal favorite pistols in the game, as this thing is a close-ranged monster whenever it comes to the damage that it can put out. Really, really, really big fan of this weapon. Next up, we have the Santa's Little Helper, one of the best RPGs in the game. I would personally advise going with a crit build. I personally have a damage one, but I would advise a crit build, as this thing can do some really good single target and multi-target damage, as well as have an insane impact of about 26,000. One of the best RPGs, well, the best RPG in the game. And do keep in mind, whenever I say RPG, I'm not talking about explosive weapons. I'm talking about, you know, like bazooka, trash cannon, all that kind of stuff. Next up, we have the Silent Spectre, one of, if not the best close-range assault rifle in the game. Crit hit chance, crit hit damage, fire rate, mag size, and its reload time are just absolute top-notch. And the, you know, rolls that you can put on it as well are really good. Next up, the Sir Lancelot, the best spear in the game, with one of the most fun heavy attacks ever. Really, really, really big fan of this weapon. Haven't gotten around to using melees in a while, but this does become your best friend in Twine Peaks Endurance whenever it does come to those mini bosses. Next up, the Snowball Launcher, another weapon that I just maxed out for a video. Never touched it again. Don't have much to say about it. Next up, the Spectral Blade, the best sword in the game. This thing has one of the best heavy attacks ever and is a very, very good weapon whenever it comes to the rolls and whenever it comes to the base attack speed. So good, in fact, that you really don't need an attack speed on it, and you can focus on full crit or damage. Next up, the Spyglass. This weapon is kind of built to be more of a headshot build to kind of counteract the way that my Betsy is built. Essentially, the Spyglass is an old Betsy with a scope put on it, and it has unlimited range, meaning it has no damage drop off. It's essentially just a Betsy reskin. A very cool looking weapon, though. One thing I will say about the Spyglass, one of my personal favorite looking weapons in the game. Looks really clean. Very big fan of it. Next up, we have the Stalwart Squire. Really good shotgun. One of my, I'd say probably top 5 shotguns. You reload after every single shot, but the amount of impact and the amount of damage you can do is pretty amazing. It even can, you know, kill up to like 5 enemies at one time. Really good spread on it. Steam Piston. Definitely regret maxing this weapon out. Thought I could make it into something pretty good, but yeah, it's a single target, or not single target, single shot assault rifle, and it's pretty much garbage. Next up, the Steam Skewer, essentially the Sir Lancelot, but not as cool. Yeah, not a big fan of this weapon at all. The Steam Thrasher, the best scythe in the game. If you guys have heard of Spin to Win or the helicopter build, you were definitely familiar with this weapon. A really good scythe, and one that is very much unique. Next up, the Swan, one of the best LMGs in the game, pretty much because of this last perk right here, makes it an absolute crit monster, and it's a weapon I really haven't touched in a while, but I definitely want to do a re-review on it. Next up, the Tar Pit. I don't have this maxed out yet, but with full durability rolls and all legendary rolls is what you're looking for on this thing. It's better than the Floor Freeze, as it guarantees a freeze, or it guarantees a stun on an enemy every single time they walk over it. These are best used at the end of trap tunnels, as they can stop rushing smashers. Next up, the Terminator, one of the better LMGs in the game, probably top tier. Yeah, this thing can be element specific, unlike the Candy Corn LMG, has a fantastic fire rate and mag size and range, and yeah, it just pumps out bullets like crazy and does huge amounts of damage. Next up, the Tiger, one of the weapons that I really liked before the hero rework, and then after Urban Assault Headhunter got a nerf. Really didn't care for it too much. I would recommend Locked and Reloaded or Bulletstorm Jonesy, as the fire rate of this weapon really just doesn't do it for me. It's a really good weapon overall, but the fire rate is definitely lacking ever since Urban Assault got nerfed. Used to be a huge fan of it, not really too much anymore. Tree of Light, my own personal favorite sword in the game. I have an attack speed on this thing to definitely help out with this last perk right here, because every 8th hit will cause a stun around the character, and if you guys do not know, this sword can actually be used to stun mini bosses. Yes, you can actually hit a mini boss 8 times with the sword. That Christmas cheer goes off, and it will actually stun a mini boss. A very cool weapon, very unique as well. Vacuum Tube Revolver, do not like this weapon at all. Do not like it. This weapon doesn't even like itself. It says that you can craft it at a bright core, even though it's Sunbeam. So yeah, not really a fan of this weapon. One of my more regretful, you know, god rolls or whatever you want to call it. Never really cared for it too much. Vacuum tube rifle, kind of the same thing. It's essentially a dragon's roar, but worse. Don't really care for it at all. Wall darts, pretty basic trap, really good. You want to use these things if they are near a wall launcher, as if you were to use a broadside instead, it might cause the enemy to stagger, and then the wall launcher might not be able to hit that staggered enemy. Wall darts definitely do serve their purpose, and they're very good for some single target damage. Wall dynamos, these things have become a little bit more obsolete in time, but they're very cheap to craft, and they're a pretty fun trap in certain situations. Wall launchers, you know, just as we were talking about earlier, these things are going to punch your enemies. One of the most valuable traps in the entire game. I would definitely say max these first if you can. The Wraith, one of my own personal favorite assault rifles. The best crit hit chance in the game for ARs, as well as crit hit damage, as well as range. Has a really slow fire rate, has a really good mag size, and a pretty decent reload time as well. Definitely a weapon that I am a huge fan of, so much so that I have an energy one and I have a water one. I have two different kinds. Next up, we have the Yeoman. Essentially, this is the old Betsy, but pretty much only used on UFOs. This thing has projectiles, so it's not really as good whenever it comes to precision. However, it does have unlimited range, so no damage fall off, but it's just basically an old Betsy, but a little bit worse, but better on UFOs. Don't really use it too much. Next up, we have the Zap Zap. Definitely an underrated pistol, definitely one that's really fun. Very big fan of the Zap Zap. This thing is a blast to use. It's very much like the Freedom's Herald. I feel like people sleep on this weapon and think of it more as a meme weapon, when in reality it's actually really fun to use. Next up, the Founders Revolt. I have kept mine as a legacy weapon. Never really cared too much to max it out, pretty much only because I wanted to keep it as a legacy just to kind of mess with people in case they ever asked me what I thought about it. Next up, we have the Atomic Light Expander. None of these are even maxed out, so I don't think they're really need to talk too much about them. I think we should be coming up on, here we go, the Walmart Spectre. This weapon is definitely one of my favorites, as it's just a silent Spectre without the silencer and with the best possible rolls that you can put on it. And here's a little bit of a secret: this thing's actually a pretty good assault rifle, believe it or not, whether it's blue or not. This weapon's really good. I like this weapon. It's fun and it sounds cool. We have the wooden floor spikes with double durability damage. I just need to put one more durability on here, and then they'll definitely be god rolls. I get comments all the time, why do I use wooden floor spikes? And the reason for that is because it's much cheaper on materials. Very, very cheap. And you can even use these things in twine endurance. It does not matter where you use these spikes, they're going to be good, because the purpose of the wooden floor spikes is to snare an enemy by 30% for the next, I believe, 2 or 3 tiles, and regardless of legendary or blue, it's going to be doing the exact same thing. You never use wooden floor spikes to do damage, you always use them to slow down enemies. So the blue ones basically are going to save you on a lot of planks and all that kind of stuff. Really good. If you guys are curious why I don't use uncommon ones, it's because the blue ones give peaky twine whenever you get them maxed out, and if you were to level up the uncommon ones, then you would have to go to Canny Valley to get the materials to craft them, which is a little bit, you know, it's unrealistic. And aside from that, we have the Stop Axe. This thing has max legendary rolls on it with a full attack speed for Paleo Luna. And I believe that is it. So if we go ahead and do a quick counting simulator really quick to figure out how many max schematics I have. Actually, I won't give you the torture. I'll go ahead and count them by myself and then go ahead and skip to the end. And so I just got done counting, and I have roughly 69 schematics that are all maxed out. And I can actually promise you that I didn't really plan that, but I have 69 schematics, all with maxed out legendary perks. And of course I am counting the Stop Axe, wooden floor spikes, and the Spectre, as well they still have all legendary perks. So we're looking at about 69 schematics, just one away from 70 being maxed out. Of course, it won't be too long till we do hit that 100 milestone. I do try to max out every single weapon that does come out, as well as currently I am on an escapade to maxing out every single trap that does come out. One thing that you guys might have missed was the typewriter, and I'm really not a big fan of the typewriter whatsoever, as well as the ghost pistol. As you guys know, I just dismantled my ghost pistol after I got another one in the birthday llamas, and the same thing with the typewriter. I dismantled both of them so that I could level up traps instead, and that is the reason why my broadsides are maxed out, as well as another weapon. I can't exactly, probably the Blastotron Mini. These used to be all epic rolls, but I did dismantle 2 of those so that I could max out other schematics. But yeah, we have about 69 maxed out schematics. If you guys are curious about my backpack, here is what that looks like. Nothing really special at all. I don't really keep too much in my backpack, or at least recently I've been cleaning it out a lot. And trying to make sure that, you know, it doesn't just get all sorts of clutter. Definitely got a lot of stuff here in the resources, in the ingredients tab, just because of donations from you guys while I'm live on Twitch. Definitely really isn't too entertaining to be farming, you know, while I'm streaming. So you guys definitely do help me out with donations. I really do appreciate it. If you guys have paid attention to the stream highlights videos, this was actually given to me by Dan7. Like, yeah, the actual Dan7 live on stream. Apparently this is a super rare jack-o'-launcher that is a nature jacko, which isn't like any of the other ones. I'm not sure how authentic it is, but this was actually given to me by Dan7, so I kept it for the memes. Of course, I did keep this Nocturno for the memes as well, just a, you know, god-rolled Nocturno with full mag size. Moonglow, Rainbow, Spectralite, been given that from long ago. VenderTech mechanical parts, all that kind of stuff. And the rest of the stuff here is in my storage, as well as some spectral mineral powder. Aside from that, I am the collection book level 234 for those of you guys that are interested in that. And yeah, I don't really have too many pages that are maxed out. I'm actually missing a lot. Here are my transforms. I don't know why anybody would be curious about that, but those are my transforms, and here are my resources. And yes, I know I am desperately low on legendary perk up. Normally it's the other way around. Normally you're really low on epic perk up and you have tons of legendary, but I've been maxing out so much stuff recently that I've just been really low on legendary, and I just, for some reason, passively just get epic. I always grab it anytime I see it, and I cannot remember the last time I was ever low on epic perk up. We're doing really good on reperk though, so I'm pretty happy about that. And our, you know, firecracker token, our firecracker pistol is sitting pretty. A little low on Eye of the Storm and a little low on Storm Shard, but aside from that, we're kind of sitting pretty on just about everything. Legendary Flux is a little bit low as well. Aside from that, X-Ray Llamas doesn't matter. Here's my loot tab, firecracker pistol right there, and the item shop. I always buy every single thing out in the item shop, of course, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else that I can showcase to you guys that would be of any interest. I guess we can go over my banners, really. If you guys are curious what the banners I have, I got some of the challenge banners, some of the endurance banners. The only one I'm missing is Canny Valley. I'm just honestly really lazy. I'm gonna get the Canny Valley banner eventually. I'm just a little lazy for it. Fortnite F banner, Frost Knight banner, some of the old Frost Knight banners, all the War Games banners, and for Founders, I have all the Founders stuff as well. And yeah, you guys have actually been gifting me a lot of these banners right here, which are really cool. I definitely do appreciate that. And of course, we got the Battle Bus banner. I think you get this for playing Season 1. I think so, but yeah, Battle Bus banner, not really anything too interesting, but I always just really care about the Frost Knight one. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the video. Those are my banners, schematics, heroes, hero loadouts, backpack, storage, collection book, resources, everything. I think that's pretty much everything. Survivor squads, yeah. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Today, of course, was my account overview, and I do these once every 3 months. And the last video I did got tons and tons of support, so I figured, you know, just why not keep with the tradition? I've been keeping with it for so long now, so why stop? But guys, that's pretty much it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it, and if you got this far in the video, leave a comment that says Ghost Pistol is Love 69, and if you do that, I will love you forever and ever. But guys, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. We just hit 71,000. Absolutely unreal. I definitely appreciate your support, but I've been going on for too long. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.